The market is on a move. Today, we're going to break it down for you, give you a full breakdown on where some of these tokens are going. You don't want to miss it. Let's just jump right in. I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Uphold. If you guys are not getting in on this deal over on Uphold, I want you to go over there right now. Click the link down below. You'll get the card with the most XRP rewards available, up to 6%, just by getting this card. And there's two levels of cards that have different quality levels in terms of performance. The key, though, is it's giving you percentages back on every expenditure you're putting on the card. Check it out. Use our link down below. No credit checks required. It's a debit card. You can, of course, get up to 10% back with a direct deposit. Many of you I know are already doing that. So use that as a catalyst to go ahead and ramp up into the card itself and start earning even more. This is going to be available anywhere Visa is done. Listen, we're going to get into the altcoins. We're going to talk about, is this a recovery that is on the move right now as Bitcoin hits 90K here on the day before Thanksgiving? Thank God. Paul Sampson is joining us. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing well, Paul. Pleasure to be back.
Yeah. I think for all the Bitcoiners, they were going into Thanksgiving Day thinking, I don't know if I want to talk to anybody. And then all of a sudden this week we've come off the floor like Rocky Balboa from 80K to 90K, and at least they'll be able to show their face at Thanksgiving tomorrow. So let's just get into it. What do you think is, what do you think we're in right now in terms of where Bitcoin is heading toward the end of the year?
Towards the end of the year, I think we really got a nice opportunity to push back up towards 110, I think.
Whoa,
in the next coming weeks
all right.
here. Yeah,
so you're very bullish. You're wearing the bullish hat too. I see that.
We're in the bull. That's it.
Do you have a bear hat?
With the wave going up.
Yeah, do you have
I'm
a bear
gonna have to
hat?
get one. I'm gonna have to get one here soon if Bitcoin doesn't turn around. But yeah, right now it's still the bull cap.
All right, we've got to look though at the fear and greed. S&P 500 2% away from all-time highs, but yet fear and greed is holding at 16, which is extreme fear and greed. Right now, why do you think that is, Paul? When you look at the market, I mean, Bitcoin just retraced off of 80K. Now, granted, for us in crypto, we look at that and say, hey, it's just an average day here in crypto land, no big deal. But for a lot of investors, maybe brand new, especially those that just bought the dip, they're sitting on $10,000 in profit. Should they sell or should they ride this out?
So we get to jump over to the charts here. And I think that the simple answer for why everybody's in extreme fear, and that even goes into the stock market as well. The stock market's actually in like the most fear that any of us have ever seen as far as if you're going off of the metric, right? And they're at all-time highs just about again.
Yep.
But I think it's because of the 4-year cycle, right? I think that everybody thinks that the high at 126 is in. It was right on time. There was a guy on Reddit calling it was going to be to that exact day, all these things. And we've seen nothing but a pretty big decline at this point. Looking at it now, it's a pretty clear downtrend, and we're gonna have to recover some ground before you can really get bullish again. But yeah, for the time being, I think that, like you just said, anybody that bought the dip here, we covered actually on the last time I was on that 82,500, how important that level was going to be. We came right into it, held it so far, a nice bounce off. You see, I have this $91,000. I just made a video today on why I had this as our turkey target. And it's a little bit more short term. Again, something that at least allows everybody to go into Thanksgiving holding their head high again to some degree. And this is just a very simple thing that I look for each and every week, which is a range from the prior week here. And when you start off the new week outside of that or at the low end, you are likely to rotate it back to either way. So if we start at the high, we'd look for a run to the low. If we start at the low, we look for a run to the high. And statistically, a lot of the times this occurs on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and it always usually aligns with, an FOMC meeting or a PPI data release or all those things. Those big bursts usually occur at the same time. So it's just funny. We were just trading here this morning, and this is a weekly level. This is a high volume target at 91K, very likely to be met this week, and that's where we're heading at right now. So flipping that would be ideal for the short term to see any more upside. But in the terms of, like we just mentioned, why everybody's in extreme fear, even at these levels here, I think it does come down to just everybody being extremely cautious, which I think it's notable that they're fearful that the 4-year cycle's here, the bear market's here for the next year, and we're just going to see these little rallies that are just going to get rolled right over. So I think that's where the fear truly comes from. And then for the stock market too, we're seeing everybody just is anticipating this big AI bubble pop and Great Depression, and I think that any pullback is just seeming like it's the beginning of that, and I feel like that's where the fear also drives there as well.
Well, a lot of that came off of Michael Burry's statement to the market of where he kind of pulled back away from the AI bubble. And of course, we saw NVIDIA's stock kind of tank a little bit. But at the same time, we're also dealing with Bitcoin, which is looking at dominance dropping. I'm looking at between 60% right there on November 5th. Here we are on November 26th, and we have dropped down, even though it did bounce, at 58.7%. Does that play into an altcoin season that could be brewing? Are we going to even have an altcoin season? Because, of course, you know, Ethereum just now cracking 3K again. What do you think?
Yeah, so a little reminder for anybody, for me, I actually note that, or I guess note, a big theory of mine is that 2026 is actually going to be a sizable year here for pretty much everything, going off of the higher time frame, 20-year cycles in the housing market, that I think that crypto is actually putting in the first 20-year cycle here as we're finishing up here into the years of 2026 to 2029, really towards 2027. But anyways, to add on to that, yeah, I'm looking at Bitcoin here in a major multi-year. I'm on a daily time frame. Let's just even go to the weekly here. This dates back all the way to 2017, actually. So 2017's bull run, our 2021 bull run. Everybody's aware that when you see this, this is an inverse chart. Generally, we go down, altcoins go up. We go up, altcoins go down. And we've come back into this sizable range region with a back test of the high, which is exactly what you want to see, and opposite of what we just looked at on that shorter time frame range. I pointed out with Bitcoin why it's heading higher right now, and dominance is getting the opposite of that. We come back into this region, we've back tested the high. You're looking for a move back to the lower ends here, back to these higher or these recent highs back here, which is a local gold. I say local, this is huge time frame, but a gold pocket retracement like in the 50% region. It's also the midpoint of this region as well, very likely that we come down to. And then we have the highest volume level, which is where this is not really price action, but the asset is going to seek out more than likely while we're in this range, the highest volume level, which is all the way back down at 41. So for the longest time here, I've been noting that we were looking for this move down. This is, again, weekly time frame. Don't expect it overnight. This is something that over the course of 2026, I envision this to come down. And that also aligns really well, if we get into it next or whenever you want to pull it up, the Ethereum outlook for myself as well, which I could see ETH outperforming Bitcoin in the year 2026, which in turn usually is meaning that the altcoins are going to outperform with it. It's not usually we just see Ethereum pushing without nothing else. So
yeah, well, and there's a lot of things that play into this right now. I want to go to a clip here because this is where we could see some interim pains. And even Tom Lee kind of talked a little bit about this, about ETH in a second. And we'll jump to ETH right after that, so you guys stick around for that. But let me play this clip for you guys.
Big question is, are we consolidating and digesting gains, which is a word I've already used before, or are we seeing some topping formations? I see a few topping formations, but I still believe we're in a consolidation phase. But as we go through it, you're going to feel some angst, and there'll be a feeling of indigestion as we try to move higher going into this Fed meeting on December 10th. Right. So we are seeing rotation, and you told me we would get this hit in the technology sector like we did for the Mag 7, underperformed the S&P 500, yet we are still at these levels. That's reason to be optimistic in my mind, because I don't think NVIDIA is done by any stretch, but I am watching key levels here around 175. It held yesterday, going to test it again today. And, you know, that'll be a good setup once we get through the end of this year to kick off 2026.
Two things to keep in mind here for you guys that are trying to figure out how this market could play out. One, of course, is the Fed meeting coming December 10th. He mentioned it there. And then others are how this outlook starts to pin through, because I think right now, Polymarket had it. I'll pull up a Polymarket here in a second. But it had the Fed rate cut now almost at 90% as of this morning of a quarter basis points. And of course, a lot of this is leaning in because of this idea of a shadow, Fed, which of course the Trump administration is now pointing at Kevin Hassett as being the potential. Kevin Hassett, remember, ex-Bitcoin advisor, or excuse me, Coinbase advisor, very understanding in terms of digital assets. And I would say in essence, he fits both profiles, one pro-crypto and other dovish, meaning he's ready to cut. All of that could layer into a potential very big Q1. Paul, when you look at that, those two things alone, in the light that NVIDIA doesn't explode, let's assume that or I should say implode, because of Michael Burry's analysis. And I'll talk about that in a second. But do you think that Ethereum gets its wind after another Bitcoin run, or do you think we're in tandem right now in terms of where the Bitcoin chart is?
I think that Ethereum could very well get it in tandem, I guess. And again, this is a place I think that we're seeing where ETH is going to start outperforming again, just as we saw in April, where from 1,400 to 4,900, we technically outperformed Bitcoin during that window of time. And ETH is poised, I think, to do that just yet again as we start off 2026. Yeah.
All right, so a couple of things to be on the lookout here. 2026, JP Morgan says S&P 500 could hit 8,000 in 2026. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like JP Morgan always does these crazy estimates right at the time when the market seems to have a little bit of lift in. It's almost like they're trying to wring out a little bit of more profit in terms of some of these funds that they're managing. I don't know. Do you like the S&P for 2026, or would you go into risk?
So the S&P, let's just take a peek at that real quick. So I'm not actually totally against that $8,000 call, I guess, because this is the only other level I've had on my S&P 500 chart for probably this entire year, to be honest with you. And we had to pull back in April. So far, it's obviously just been a huge up move only with no sizable corrections. And that's why you see I have these two just simple Fibonacci pullbacks here, which the main one for me is if we were to come down lower when we were coming down earlier this month, even if we came back to like 6,100, this would have been a very technical, very shallow retracement, and you'd still back test previous highs, all that good stuff. But anyways, we're back near the highs yet again. And to me, when I'm looking at the markets, basing it once more off of that 20-year housing market, economic business cycle outlook, I vision, or I can see here that we could have a very big 2026, right? Yet again, everybody's really expecting a big rollover in the Great Depression and all that to occur since we've been, in 2020 basically. And I think this last leg here could very well be here. And looking at this though, in the sense of percentage gain, you're talking 10, 12, 15, I guess we're 8,000 would put it almost a 20% move. And if you have size in the market, of course, that's incredible. And so, I mean, would I jump into this at the highs, expecting $8,000? Once again, just like you said, where we get these extreme or the next big levels only once we're there. It's a little risky, I think, to come into that. I'd probably look for other opportunities here. But if you're already in S&P from lower, then I'd say that this is, there's two times when you're trying to analyze things. It's to the person that's looking for a fresh buy or the person that's already been invested. And today is probably if I'm invested, I'm looking higher. If I'm looking for a fresh opportunity, it's not today.
Well, and there's two things, because I think everybody's trying to figure out, well, if this does play out to what you're talking about, Paul, with DataDash, is this goes into Q1 possibly as a rip into what could be a very accelerated Fed rate cut. Because come May, it's very possible we could see a full point getting cut off of the Fed rate. If that occurs, that would be a massive stimulus into the market going into spring. That, of course, starts to move things around. So timing might be, to your point, right in line with where you could see some pullbacks in the S&P. The other thing with NVIDIA, when you look at how Burry was addressing this, it really just boiled down to the depreciation schedule that NVIDIA was planning on these chips, mainly saying, hey, we're going to push this depreciation out like 5 to 7 years instead of a chip being at its life cycle at like 2 to 3 years. And that was what was padding the books or cooking the books. I disagree with that in the sense that I think when you look at the scale and growth of what NVIDIA is dealing with, the way they build against this is just to grow past it, and then they would cover any of those losses in depreciation. So if you played counter of Burry, then NVIDIA could still see some up here, to your point, maybe into an 8,000, 7,500. That is going to blast the risk markets upward, I think, in terms of Bitcoin, especially ETH. What would be your target price for ETH right now if you were looking into the Q1 range?
So for Q1 for ETHs, originally I had a area that we were looking to get a bounce off of. It was that $3,600 mark, and then we ended up coming a little bit deeper here, right into a gold pocket. So you'll hear me talk about that. I think many analysts point that out. It's a very, very natural place to see a retracement. So we had off of this last move up, which, to be fair, this was right as we had the last upgrade. I believe that was Pectra upgrade or update. Pectra. And we have another one coming up in just a week or two here. I know you cover that quite often. So interesting enough, we have that coming as we're on the heels of a major support level. But we've come into this big area. For me, I actually acquired more Ethereum here. I'm a huge Ethereum bull, huge Ethereum. Like that's my largest bag personally. So just so that's that's out there. But yeah, really enjoyed seeing this pullback here and the bounce off it so far. Locally, we had a little weekly target, just similar to the turkey target on Bitcoin. But without that, I'm really looking to see ETH reclaim this yearly open for this year. It's not only just because of that. It's you can also see how just really in demand that support was until we flipped it. So flipping that would be really crucial here. And then honestly, Paul, I think that Q1 still has enough legs to get us back to all-time highs into the $5,000 range on Ethereum. And if I can pull up, again, just my larger outlook is actually that we see a really sizable move in Ethereum through the year. And that is all predicated off of, again, this larger ETH versus BTC setup, which is a huge 6-year bullish reversal that completed in April of this year. Usually takes about 1.5 to 3 years to hit the major target from there. This is where we got the huge burst from 1,400 up to 4,900, a 250% move on ETH when Bitcoin, I think, only rallied like 80 to 100, still amazing, but we outperformed. A little cool off right here, and the remaining target zone, which is up in this region, comes in with fib times aligning with it around the end of next year and into Q1 of 2027. So not that we have to wait that long to see anything big here, because again, if we're starting to crawl up into these regions, that puts ETH back at the all-time highs here, and then going into new, potentially new highs as we go into the remainder of next year.
All right, so new highs the remainder of next year. To your point, Fusaka is happening next week, and this is going to accelerate a lot of different things. Of course, we saw the move with Pectra and where ETH came from at that time. You kind of hit it in the sense of ETH really starting to grow and outperform Bitcoin. So definitely something to keep an eye on, guys. One thing to just remember, though, just as a warning, is that Lee is now saying, and he has softened his position. He's still looking at a 7K instead of a 10 to 12. But he's also talking about a potential of coming back down to 2,500 before a rebalance. Do you think we hit a 2,500 before end of year?
It's a tough one. I mean, we're so close to there. I know it's $500 away now, but when we came down just recently to 26, 2,500 does have a very, very high volume level sitting there for this year. Yeah. So I wouldn't count it out by any means. And if I was looking at those DCA zones, it would definitely be in the $2,500, $2,600 level if we push back to it. So I wouldn't totally count that out in a shorter term, just pull back again. But yeah.
All right, let's jump over to Solana for a second. The ETF streak is on the move right now. They've got 0 outflows since launch. That's kind of cool when you look at some of the other narratives that are placing in the market, including the push of all of the XRP ETFs, which have been busting through. BSOL, of course, with Bitwise did very well. We are seeing Solana on the move here. Question mark is, how does Solana perform in the chart in comparison to Ethereum? What is your position?
Yeah, so let's see here. So Solana, pretty much a huge range for the last, I guess since 2024. Sizably up, let's just, be fair there though. We had $8 lows and $22 lows a couple years back and has been pretty much holding up in this 100+ region. There was a bullish harmonic that completed same time around that April window that I've covered a couple times here. Won't get too far into it. Had a major target up here at that 196. So we slowly made our way to that. This was pretty much a little line in the sand for any more upside, or if we lost it for more down. Once we lost it here, the downside area turns into what's called a 5-0, which is meaning we're just rejecting off of that 50 spot, essentially the 50% retracement. The 5-0 targets come in right here. So 131 is where we're holding and basing off of for Solana. And honestly, as long as we're holding at that 131, the overall setup is still in play here. So that 274 and 323, I believe it is where I could see Solana pushing up to. Okay. The caveat here is we just really have to remain above this 131. Otherwise than that, you got big DCA zone between that and $85. But 274 and 323 are still really in that docket there. And that's about 135% move here. Personally, I think that's probably... It could go higher, of course. As you're pointing out, there's a lot of ETF inflows and things like that happening behind the scenes. So when those come to surface, it could really be explosive. But from what I'm seeing currently, if I had to line up ETH versus Solana, personally, I think ETH has got the chance to outperform 135%. So,
All right, so we're doing kind of a round robin here. Then let's jump over to Avalanche. We had Anthony Scaramucci on the show just the other day. We were talking about the Avalanche DAT. He had, of course, a lot of things to talk about, but we hit on a lot of positives for Avalanche as an ecosystem, but we're not seeing it in the charts, Paul. So tell me why Avalanche is not moving. What's going on?
Yeah, we just similar to many of the coins out there, and even some as you just pointed out, right? You pointed out XRP, I believe, has extreme moves behind the scenes as far as ETFs goes, but the price action hasn't really caught up to that yet. Solana the same way right now. It's just one of those things that when we get some of these big catalysts that I think that will have long term effects over the the price and things that'll come along with it, they're not as immediate as we'd like them to be, right? As soon as you get these really big bursts, so Avalanche is in the same camp. We're just really just kind of grinding it out around these lows. I think we touched on this last time as well. For me, I'd really love to see Avalanche get back above pretty much where we're trading at right now. Let's just call it $15. This is where we've had our 6-month lows coming in here. Yeah. So to start closing above, especially if we were to close this year, which now we have just a couple more weeks here, that would look pretty good here as far as a little sign of strength there. We've also got 2024's low to be aware of, just $2 above that. And the thing with Avalanche here is that the way we've been consolidating and with, again, just, positive fundamentals behind the scenes, I think that this is something that, for me, this is always something where I'm going to be willing to put on risk when we're at these low ends, when comparing to something that's at a brand new all-time high. This is something that obviously the risk is a little bit lower. Can it go lower? Yes, but this is something that can very well explode out of this region, and you get those really quick bursts, and it's usually because we've been consolidating and all that price action and demand is pent up. And again, we have a huge upside potential here. Not even to get to price discovery. This is just a simple price recovery. And when looking at this, like, again, the only thing I can compare this to is when I looked at XRP for the longest time, and then you had that humongous rip right that came out of it. So Avalanche does look, again, it looks weak currently, but only until it doesn't, right? Just similar to actually this exact move right here. We had all this downward move until it's not, right? And I feel like we're in the same position right now. So I just think we need to claim some ground here, start to see a little strength, but here is definitely an area where you want to be considered, again, no financial advice, but if I'm looking for a place to consider putting on risk, it's definitely here on Avalanche with potential for $98, down the road.
We're going to pick 2 tokens at the end here because we've got like 6 that we're covering here. Solana, Avalanche, obviously ETH, Bitcoin. Let's also take a look at Uniswap. And this is something because we now have the switch in play. 63,000 votes is where they're going to be able to take a lot of these yields, give those back to the users. This is going to change things for Uniswap in a big way. As you can see, it was overwhelming in terms of the vote. And it's most likely going to turn on quickly. The question is, as many people said, well, when we heard the news, Uniswap took a nice move, and then, of course, everything fell apart. It came down with Bitcoin along with everything else. But where does Uniswap stand right now? Is this a trade that we should be looking at?
I mean, I think, again, we're trading around, aside from that huge wick down on the October 10th liquidation event and being at the lows yet again after the fact of the range here, you're still trading relatively near the lows here, right? So again, some places where if you're looking to DCA into, not talking about leverage trades or anything like that, you don't really need leverage with any of these altcoins. They do crazy moves on their own. But we're sitting around the point of control. Again, this is the most traded area of the region I'm looking at here. So this is definitely where the most hands are trading place here as far as buys and sells go. The only problem with it is you did have a range run right here, right? So you see here we pulled back to the low, you ran it to the high. Until we really break one of these two, the odds are you might come back down to the lows. The only thing you just got to be prepared for here. And while this is very tiny, it's like 25% more. But ultimately, if you're looking at DCA between where we are now and that 476 low and that 20% window, I think that we have, similar to Avalanche, a really big move that could really get underway here. We're trading near the areas where you consider putting on risk. You always have to be able to put on risk at these areas because, again, once we get to this level is when everybody gets excited, wishes they bought back here. But during those pullbacks is when it's all scary and seems like it's dead. Similar thing right here and here and here, just like Avalanche. So yeah, I'd say that this is an area of opportunity. Same thing goes here. Big areas above us back at like $22 to $25 and potentially up to 30. So now just, again, we're talking percentage gains here, potentially a 300% move, 380% move, assuming that the next year we get that dominance pullback.
I'm going to jump in on that one. I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little aggressive, I think. Listen, I love Uniswap. There's nothing wrong with it, but that's a major alternate universe you're talking about there, Paul. Let me ask you this: is if you were to invest between Avalanche and Uniswap, if I was choosing between those two, which one would you go with right now?
I would choose Avalanche.
Okay, AVAX. All right, so we got AVAX and ETH. Now we're going to pick one more. This time we're going to jump over to SWI. All right. Here's Adenya. He's talking about some things that this is back in May, guys. He was kind of hinting at, you know what he's hinting at, is that maybe we might get a Pokemon involvement in the SWI network. However, nothing has resolved from this. And now he says, just here the other day, it's going well. I don't know what to make of that yet, but when you look at the chart on SWI, it's definitely not going well. So where are we on SWI as a possibility?
So the one thing I don't love about SWI in the listings today that we just went over is that I think that and the problem is like if this has this type of potential, maybe everything does. But this level down here that I have marked, this 83 cents, this is a extremely high volume level that is also paired up with high time frame averages, and they all come in at the exact same cent, right? And it's about 50% away from where we are now. We've slowly kind of made our way down to this region. And if I look at this in just a simple, what's known as an ABC correction, where you start right here, you get your A to this point, you push up to make a lower high, and then you get that last, so that you got A, B, and then you got the last one is C. Could it be already completed? Sure. Usually we have to take out the low here. But if we're looking at this in a very specific manner, usually it's this type of move is exactly the same projected off of this level here. And the way we could do that is take a trend-based fib extension and map that off, go from the high to the low and drag that up to the high right there. And that 100% equivalent comes in right at that level as well, right? Or just a little bit below it here. And so just technically speaking, I think that SUI has potential to come down a little bit lower. It is already extremely low off of the high. The only thing to note there, right? We're down 70%. So if somebody's looking for that opportunity where you don't want to get overly greedy waiting for lower, if just in case we do start to take off here, I'd say that the takeoff level really begins if we claim 170. But I'd say that it's a really big gap, but you could really just consider scaling in around these regions if you want to catch that next leg up. But just the only thing about these all that one just really sticks out at me, that we still might see a little pullback. You get those random news and tweets that they got hacked or something that usually can cause it. Yeah, that's exactly.
A big pullback. Yeah, that's a big pullback. Yeah. All right, so we've kind of picked Ethereum as one of the alphas over here when it goes head to head with Solana. But what about Avalanche versus SWI? Because I'm trying to help the audience. Avalanche.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Avalanche. Yeah.
So all right. So there you go, guys. I mean, we've got some potential picks here for the end of the year that could move on you. Whether you're a little bit more risky, you want to look at something like an AVAX, or maybe you're a little more tolerant, you want to go in the direction of Ethereum. Again, not financial advice, but hopefully this gives you some good analysis on what to look for in some of these tokens. And the key here, like Paul has kind of been alluding to, is there are some trading zones that are starting to occur on a handful of these tokens. Now, do we get a retracement? Sure, it could be another fake pump. Right now, what are we at? We just crossed 90K on Bitcoin. So we're on the move right now, a little bit of a market pump. Whether or not we can hold this through Thanksgiving will be the question. I want you guys to do one thing. I want you to jump over to Paul's channel right there, DataDash, and make sure and subscribe. Let him know we sent you, and give him a nice turkey. A nice turkey for Thanksgiving, and that is moving along here. One last thing for you, Paul. When you look at December 10th, because I don't know if I got your prediction on this. December 10th, Fed rate cut. Are you in the quarter basis point camp right now?
Yeah, I think at least a quarter.
Okay.
And is that the day that Ethereum gets the upgrade too? Just now that I'm thinking out loud, the Fusaka, is it on the 10th? I think it is,
Week
right?
is Fusaka. Next week with Ethereum. So that's it may not be immediate if we start to see some movement on ETH. So it could happen timing wise, could literally be in line with what the Fed rate cut is happening on the 10th.
Right.
So think about that. We are, 14 days away right now of a Fed rate cut potentially. That plays into January. Many people pushing for 50, even though the quarter is kind of the number. But the question is, could we get a surprise rate cut? Because remember, that was a big reversal coming off of what we were on a no change. All of a sudden, we're now above 80% as of this morning over on Polymarket on that quarter basis points. Anyway, you guys know what to do. Like and subscribe. Paul, thanks for coming in on the show. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Paul.
You bet. All right, you guys, if you are not in the Barron Market Edge, that's our free group. All you have to do is click the link down below. You can join, and we send out free research, insights, as additional research that we do here on the show, along with my own personal email that goes out to you guys, tells me where I'm going in the markets. That's the way to get involved. Of course, follow me out there on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on The Paul Barron Show.